Hello and welcome to another one of these fairly regular sort of monthly lives I've been doing for the last 3 years now, with Ukrainian teachers of English, trying to amplify Ukrainian voices, trying to make sure stories from inside Ukraine get out and are heard, and trying to do my own little bit to combat the Russian disinformation campaign that's part of their ongoing genocidal war against Ukraine. As you may have seen, last night and the night before were particularly bad nights in Ukraine. Russia has launched its pretty much biggest air missile attack on Kiev and on various other cities yesterday. There were 12 deaths across Ukraine and a huge amount of destruction. And it looks like Russia is currently overproducing missiles and stockpiling for the coming months. So we can expect to see many more such terror attacks on Ukrainian civilians. Today, I'm going to be talking to a teacher called Karyna, who is from Odesa and based in Odesa. I was lucky enough to meet her while I was over in Odesa in April earlier this year. And she's also in one of my classes as a student. So, yeah, I've seen that Karyna has just asked to join. So, oh, no, she hasn't. Other people have asked to join. Sorry, I won't be adding you. Karyna, I know you're watching, so you have to press the little camera thing, and then I'll let you join. Let's see if that works. Okay, you're there. Second. Yeah, let's see what happens. Sorry, I've got fat fingers, so trying to operate on a little small phone doesn't always work. Hey!
Hi. Hello, Hugh.
How
Hi.
are you?
How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. It's good. I'm alive, which is good. Yeah, just a second. I can see you. Yeah, I can see you now.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm good. Had a rough night. I barely slept. I went to a bomb shelter and slept there for about 2-3 hours, and a bit difficult when you. Yeah, but it's okay. It's
So
good.
some of the
Sleep
people,
deprived.
this is good. So some of
Yeah.
the people I know in Kiev were saying it was the first time they'd gone back into the shelter since 2022. It was really sort of rough in Kiev, and so they were just like, do you know what? Finally, we're going to go back into the shelters.
Yeah.
A lot of people have not been doing that very much. So,
Yeah. Oh, better safe than sorry.
well, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And was Odessa badly hit last night, or?
At least not in my area, but I heard distant explosions quite a lot, and I can't just handle them. So whenever I see like there is explosion outside, I tend to go to the bomb shelter because I just, the sound just, yeah, drives me mad.
Do you have a
Yeah.
shelter nearby that's kind of easy access for you, or?
Yeah, yeah. This is basically an underground parking where we park our cars, and well, it's basically built for people to stay there. There are the shelves. You can sit there. People sleep there. Basically, they just drag their mats and stuff for sleeping. They sleep in their cars. We have Wi-Fi there, so you can work there. You can sleep there. Yeah. I remember 2 years ago, there was a New Year's Eve, and people brought their chairs and their like food, drinks, and they basically celebrated New Year in a bomb shelter. It was just a wonderful sight, I would say.
And
Yeah.
how many people do you get down there usually? Like, what sort of numbers of people?
Well, it depends how harsh the situation is. There's still some people who just that's all right. Yeah, it been worse. Just I think 12, 30, sometimes more. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And how long does it take you to get there? I mean, how much warning do you usually get of like a sort of incoming attack?
Come again.
How long does it take you to get down there from your apartment or whatever? And how much warning do you usually get of like an incoming attack?
I actually once set a timer how long it takes me to go to the bomb shelter
Okay.
because once you get like air alarm and there is like a Telegram bot chat that says that there is like a target in Odessa, we have to go proceed to the bomb shelter and I set a timer. It took me 3 minutes.
Okay.
I was running. Yeah, and you know your heart pounding and you're just you have to make it.
And
Yeah.
how much time, how much warning do you usually get from the alerts?
I don't know. Maybe minute two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
just
Okay.
yeah.
So there's still a kind of degree of lottery about it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for giving up your time to be here. I
Oh,
imagine, you know, you could probably be doing with a decent night's sleep instead. But thank you for joining me.
thank you for having me
Hey,
and for giving me
you're
voice.
welcome. You're welcome. So I was interested that when I asked you to send me a little blurb about yourself, the main thing that you mentioned was this kind of journey that you've made over recent years from being someone who grew up very kind of, I guess, immersed in Russian culture and the culture of Russian language and the way that you've changed from that, yeah? So I
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
maybe we should start there. And if you want to
Great.
just say a bit more about that, because I thought that was really interesting. And I'm sure it's also something that a lot of people inside Ukraine are going through.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Yeah, so for the background, I grew up in quite a Russified environment, and up to 2014, I was basically taught like Russian literature. We had like holidays. We had this poem reciting evenings where I learned by heart like Pushkin's poems and everything. And you know, the teachers at school, they were just praising, worshiping Pushkin and Dostoevsky, and it was everything. And I was kind of taught to admire them, like the only one literature that actually exists in the world. And even we had so-called so yeah, basically it was Russified. And since
And
2014
can
there were
I just ask,
changes.
Karina, sorry, were your family like a Russian speaking family as well?
It used to be. Yeah, it
Okay.
used to be.
So you grew up speaking
Yeah.
Russian at home and predominantly speaking Russian at school and stuff as well, or?
No, I did speak Ukrainian at school, and it was about 2015 when like a teenager, and I wanted to stand out. I just wanted to see what like Ukrainian thing is, and I started speaking Ukrainian at school. And I think that was just sort of a beginning of my journey because, well, my stepfather, he's from, let's say, the western part of Ukraine. And
Okay.
there was the summer I went there and I went to a traditional Ukrainian wedding. And I remember like standing in the middle of a crowd, dancing, singing Ukrainian songs, and there was something I've never experienced, and it felt so real, so true, uh, like something I wanted to belong to. And that was probably the moment I like deep down I realized that this is something that has roots, something deep, and the culture I was exposed to, it's artificially created and it's not mine. And I think it was just all on this feeling level, like intuition, when you felt that, well, I want to change. I want to belong to whatever it is, whatever the people are united by, whatever they do. I want to do that too. And I went back to Odessa and I started listening Ukrainian songs, reading up on Ukrainian history, literature, like beyond the curriculum, the school curriculum. And there was something new to me, but which is kind of strange. Well, you in Ukraine, but yeah, it was just something more than like on the surface, something more than just on this superficial level.
And generally, Odessa's been a very kind of Russian speaking environment, yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But to be fair to mention that I had teachers that were very pro-Ukrainian, that spoke only Ukrainian at schools and outside of the school, which is important, like, and I had pro-Ukrainian friends, like who were older than me, but who were very, very patriotic. And I think it just, they set an example and I looked up to them. I just didn't join them when they were protesting or whatever, but I just, watched that from distance, and I wanted to join them one day. But I was a bit, afraid. I was just not sure how to do that and everything.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I mean, I don't know how old you were in 2014, but obviously younger than I was. I was going to ask you like what your memories of 2014 were and what your understanding of what was happening of 2014 was at the time.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Well, I think I knew that something big was happening, and I had a friend. She had to flee from Donetsk in 2014. That's the year we met, and they had to up sticks and move to Odessa, leaving all their life behind. And they had business in Donetsk. Her father was from a wealthy family, and they had like 3 flats or 4 flats and a house, like a life, And they moved to Odessa with one small bag, like summer clothes, thinking that they would come back in autumn to Donetsk, but they never come back. They never came back, and it was actually terrifying to see what they were going through because they were forced to live in very bad conditions. They basically lived in a building which used to be a public toilet, like almost a basement.
When they moved to
And there were, yeah, there were 4 of them: my friend, her mother, her grandfather, and her brother. Um, and they were just barely making their ends meet because no money, no property, nothing could, they couldn't return things. They couldn't even go to Donetsk and grab like some more clothes for winter to just get by. And yeah, that was probably when I first saw what the war is and what damage it did to people, to
what
people
was
like.
your understanding then of what was happening in Donetsk? Did you understand it even at that point as a Russian occupation or a Russian takeover? Yeah,
Of
yeah.
course, it was obvious. Like, but my family might be used to be Russian speaking, but they never were pro-Russian, so they knew politically what was going on.
It's a
So
really
so I was
important
aware.
distinction, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
yeah, very important because that's not always the case for people from Odessa,
Hmm.
unfortunately. So yeah, I knew what was going on. And later on, I discovered that there were soldiers fighting in that region, and my father's friends, my stepfather's friends, they were involved. They were serving, and they died serving in 2015 or something. And oh, there was something like, let's say, just how is it happening? My friend, I think it's important to mention she died in a car crash in 2023 when she was coming back to Kiev from Lviv. So she basically had to flee the war twice. And though war didn't kill her directly, but I still think that if it wasn't for the war, she wouldn't
Yeah.
have died. Maybe. And yeah, and she never had a sense of home. Like she moved from Donetsk when she was like 15 or 14, like a teenager. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm so sorry. And how aware were you of what was happening with Crimea at that point as well? Because I mean, Odessa's only like a kind of stone's throw from Crimea, really. Yeah. Did
Hmm.
that impact you in any way at that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were like some sort of things that pro-Russians and Russian were trying to destabilize the area. and they were like armed people who wanted to provoke people in Odessa to see that, well, we are waiting for Russians to liberate us as
Yeah,
Crimea. We
Odessa's
wanted the
people.
same. Yeah, but people I knew, my friends, like as I mentioned, they were older than me. There was even my ex-boyfriend who was a part of a pro-Ukrainian like protest there, and well, people died there, like about 11, 12 young people, and he was among them. And later on, he just told me everything, and so it was a mess. Like they were killing people, like they were armed. But pro-Ukrainian protesters, they weren't armed. They were just protesting, and then it turned out that like they were sent here to, you know, to make this mess. But I knew what was happening. Yeah, my
Yeah,
mom told me, don't you dare leave the house today. I remember the day clearly, and I was sitting in my room, like constantly checking the messages from them, from the guys. And I wanted to go there. I wanted just, but well, I couldn't. Yeah.
what one of the things I've noticed a lot of the Russians of my acquaintance and former acquaintance returning to is what happened with the trade union building and the fire in Odessa. And you know, along with the kind of these stories about the genocide of the Russian-speaking people in Donbass. I noticed that the Odessa story was used a lot in Russian propaganda,
Yeah.
and it was sort of used to perpetuate this idea that somehow anyone who speaks Russian is being targeted and killed, and the evil Ukrainian nationalists are targeting Russian speakers. And it was always really weird for me because I probably told you before, but I used to study very basic Russian. And I can remember being in Odessa in like 2018, 2019, and speaking my own shit Russian in cafes and bars and things. And, you know, not being genocided for doing so, and finding that it was a completely normal thing to do there. And so I guess I wonder, were you aware at the time that what had happened in Odessa was also being used by the Russians as propaganda?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know, when you know people who were there, when you can experience that firsthand, it's easy to debunk all those lies, because you know for yourself, like that wasn't the case. And especially when you have people who were there, like physically, and who were not armed, who were also Russian speaking, but who didn't want us to, so become Russia, so to say. Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to say something, but lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right.
So what then happened for you between, say, 2014, 2015, when Crimea was illegally annexed and when Donbass was occupied, and the full-scale invasion? What was going on with you and your sense of self and your language identity and your cultural identity?
Um, he was sleeping.
Yeah.
I would say I was sleeping. I was just doing my business. I was studying. I was working, and I was too occupied with my things. And I kind of missed everything that was going on in my country, and I'm really ashamed of that, because, well, yeah, now it's changed. Now I have different views, and unfortunately, you know, the cost is enormous. But this change in mindset, it costs a lot. But I think it started when the war, the full-scale invasion began, like 20, like that February, and I found myself unable to speak Russian anymore. Like I didn't want to. And there was like leaving your old identity behind, but I didn't have anything fully formed, like a new identity, like in front of me. And I was very lost. I basically like closed up. I lost touch with friends. Because language is important. This is what gives you, you know, voice. You can express yourself, and you can mix up with people. But when you don't have it, you're nothing.
Yeah.
And that was me probably. And I remember coming back from, like, there was March, I was coming back from the school where we were helping weaving camouflage nets with,
Yeah.
like, there were lots of women, you know, this is was our way to do something to occupy ourselves, because, well, it was hard just to be in this reality. And I remember coming back and I was reading the novel, Orwell's novel, and I was coming back home and I was trying to retell what I read in Ukrainian, just to practice my Ukrainian. And it was so embarrassing because I am like an adult and I can't speak. And it was really hard to come to terms with that, well, you have to rebuild it. You have to find this new language that, well, you might have learned it at school, you know, like in university, I defended my thesis in Ukrainian and everything, but this, like, real language that people speak, not academic, that was hard. That was a struggle.
How
So
did
I
you do
think,
that?
Mhm.
How did you do that?
It took me a lot of patience. It took me 3 years of therapy. It took me a lot of, like, I had to cut myself some slack. I had to be kind with myself, because I wanted to change. I knew that, well, this is what it is now. And I guess it took me 1 year to completely switch to Ukrainian. The thing is that I was only exposed to Ukrainian content. So I deleted all kinds of, like, Russian bloggers and unfollowed them. And so the whole informational, like, let's say, bubble, internet bubble, it was all Ukrainian. So I think it really mattered. Yeah.
And how did that impact you in terms of your sense of self and in terms of your relationship with your earlier self? I realize
Mm,
that's a kind
yes.
of therapy kind of
Wow,
question.
that's a very deep question, very profound. Well, I maybe realized that language is political. Like, it's about standing out. Like in Odessa, it was about standing out maybe 3 years ago. Now, a lot of people around me speak Ukrainian, and all my friends, and I can hear Ukrainian all over the place now. And, well, I'm happy. You know, that's good. But back then, like 3 years ago, when I first, like, you know, embarked on my journey of transformation, I was standing out, and like, I had to. It was easier to follow along, just to continue speak Russian, because, well, it's just a language. But it's not just a language. It's never just a language. It's about the way you think. It's about your values. It's about culture. It's about belonging to your nation. Like, I just wanted to belong to my nation. Like, my nation during these difficult times, amidst all the horrors that we are being inflicted on, I wanted to be with my nation, and that was the way to show my belonging, probably. And I think political awareness also just joined along, you know. And I'm still, like, it's still evolving. I'm still growing politically, and I think, along with my country, because this is actually what helped me um, to keep sanity, maybe to preserve my sanity, is that we as a nation, we are young. We're just, like, you know, speaking in terms of nations, we're babies. And we're still learning. Like, we're learning to take responsibility. We're learning to not to play the victim, to know who we are, not to be deceived, how not to be deceived, how to choose the right leaders. And this is all the journey, like the self-discovery journey. And I feel like I'm just, you know, doing it along with my country.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling the times I've been in Ukraine since the start of the full-scale invasion is, I guess there's three or four things I feel very strongly. One is that there's a definite kind of cultural renaissance and sense of pride in Ukrainianness that's kind of emerging and developing, particularly among young people. And there's a lot of people articulating that very clearly and in a very kind of positive and powerful way. And I also feel there's a kind of just a very clear-eyed understanding of the situation that currently exists in a way that I think far too few people have in the rest of Europe still. And in some ways, it kind of it was really weird for me being in Ukraine. It was like I'm up in Kharkiv or in Odessa, and it should feel crazy and it should feel like a kind of place where you're under threat, but actually it felt very sane and very kind of very normal in that everybody just seems to understand what you're dealing with and what has to be done to combat it. And that was a very powerful feeling for me to be there and to experience that. And it's interesting to hear you articulate your own kind of sense of that and your own feelings about that. Yeah. So has it changed the way, I mean, it's a stupid question. In what way has it changed the way that you then go back and look at things like the classic Russian literature that you were brought up on? How do you see that kind of stuff? You know,
Um,
the great Russian culture.
when I saw it from a political perspective, it immediately made
Yeah.
sense, because when you look at the West and people worshiping, praising Russian literature
Yeah.
without questioning the values it has inside. And when I started learning about the whole Russian policy, like foreign policy, what they're doing, how much money they're putting I hate this word now, yeah, into these universities, Stanford, and they just promoting their culture, but not in this healthy way, but in a way that makes people blind. And it kind of gives them the foundation to cover up all the crimes and all their evil sides, because they use culture to cover up what they're doing and just to let people admire it, while they're doing something on the side, and we know what. And well, I used to engage with like someone from the West, like there was some students from Stanford. I was just having like a decent conversation with them, saying that we have to rethink the way we see Russian culture. You worship it, and that's the problem. It's dangerous to worship like any kinds of things, because like it makes you oblivious, and it's dangerous, because you never know when it's gonna turn out badly, and you have to be like careful with that. And that was the conversation when they said that I was just very aggressive, and culture is culture, it has nothing to do with politics. And I was like, but no, everything is about politics, like literally everything: music, culture, literature, people, because it's about people. This is about how people live.
Yeah.
But it was just like banging your head against the brick wall.
I
They
mean,
just didn't get it.
America itself has been very clever at using this at various points in time. There's a great book I was reading recently about how during the 50s, at the height of the Cold War, America was promoting jazz and abstract expressionism as art forms which they felt somehow represented the American sense of freedom. And so the American government would send off various jazz musicians and Jackson Pollock and various artists to go around the world and kind of say, look, this is the modern free American cultural values. And they used that as part of their soft power. So I guess it's like Stanford students either don't know about that or have just forgotten that that's part of how culture works. And I think you're completely right that what Russia's very clever at doing is kind of saying, don't look at Bucha or Mariupol. Look, the Bolshoi and some ballet and here's Dostoevsky.
Yeah.
And they're very clever at using that as a way of deflecting attention away from the reality of Russian war crimes and Russian aggression on the ground.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, what you were saying about language being political, the fact that as soon as areas are occupied, people who speak Ukrainian are, you know, punished, disappeared, sent through filtration camps or whatever. The Ukrainian language is banned, Ukrainian literature is banned. And, you know, again, you've got this kind of imposed Russification on the occupied territories. I
Yes.
remember seeing recently the outside of the theatre that was bombed in Mariupol, where all the people were sheltering from the attacks. And as the Russians were rebuilding it, they covered it in a kind of cladding which had pictures of Pushkin and Dostoevsky on it. And I just thought, I can't think of anything more obscene. It's just so disgusting. It's like you blow up a town and you kill tens of thousands of people, and you blow up a theatre with children written on the top of it, and then you rebuild it with pictures of your great culture on it. And then you still have people telling you culture is somehow not part of politics. It's like, tell the Russians that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was saying, like, when I was talking to those people in the West, it's not about banning, like, not about banning the culture. It's about rethinking the way you see it. And oh, speaking of soft power strategies, you reminded me, like, recently I watched the video. There's a great YouTube channel called Ukrainian Q with interviews with really smart, bright people, Ukrainians,
What's it
and
called? Ukraine?
Ukrainer Q. It's a series
Ukrainer
of
Q.
interviews. Ukrainer Q. Q. Like letter Q.
Okay.
Like questions. Q. Yeah. So for centuries, they've been luring young people, bright minds, to visit Russia, offering this cultural exchanges, scholarships, friendship trips, just come to see what Matushka Rossiya is, you know. And these people returning not just with memories, but they are returning back to their countries is basically infected by the idea of so-called Russian soul. And it's not diplomacy. It's about this, I don't know, grooming
Yeah.
psychological virus,
I think
spreading this
grooming is a very good
virus.
way of putting it.
Yeah, and people coming back home blind, completely blind, biased, like in the way that they favor Russia now, and it's everywhere. You know, those people, they are well dressed, they are educated. It's not like they're not educated, and this kind of very indicative of how smart they actually doing it, because they have different strategies for different groups of
Yeah.
people, educated, not educated.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and this is very structured, like, system.
I always thought that
um
Timothy Snyder quote was very smart about, if you hate Nazis, they'll tell you they're fighting Nazis, and if you hate gays, they'll tell you they're fighting gays. You know, it's kind of, it's pick your message for your audience. It's very clever.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's easy to fall for that thing when you don't have to defend your country, when you don't have to join the army, when you don't have to explain war to children. Like, and it's just, I think this is how it's been for ages. This is what people are. This is what, well, human beings are. Oh, someone shared the link. Thank
Thank
you,
you for sharing.
Ukraine.
I'll share it later in a story, but thank you for that.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, you mentioned earlier kind of unfollowing loads of people you had been following before and so on. Do you have any family or any friends who are still in Russia? Do you have any contact with anybody? Sorry
uh,
to ask.
no, that's a completely reasonable question. I begged my mom to cut all ties with them, which I did 3 years ago, because it's just meaningless. They are just protecting, defending what they're used to, because otherwise, if they open their minds and see what is really going on, they're gonna just go
This,
crazy. And
this
yeah, they
family
don't want.
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, family. Yeah. And just, what is strange is that most of them moved to America, the States.
No.
So they are loving Russia from the States. And this is ridiculous, but one of my relatives, they have dogs, and they named one dog after Putin. Their dog is Vladimir Putin, because they think he's really a great leader and they admire him. Um, Speechless.
It's,
And
well,
dogs. I mean,
they must be enjoying America's slide into authoritarian.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
They are.
yeah, I mean, I wonder how many of those people there are all over Europe as well. I have a friend who left Russia several years ago, and she now lives in Berlin. And I remember her telling me her horror when she went to vote in the last elections. You know, she said she knows it's rigged and she knows it's all bullshit, but she wanted just to officially log an anti-Putin vote. And her shock at seeing people who'd been living in Germany 30 years wrapped in Soviet flags as they were queuing to vote in the Russian embassy in Berlin. And it's like, it's it's just mind blowing that you can be that long out of Russia in Europe and you can still have that kind of trace of that imperial mindset on you. You know, it's very deep, clearly.
Yeah, very deep.
And I wanted to go back a little bit to 2022 and just ask what your experiences were of the early days of the full scale invasion, what it was like being in Odessa, what your
I
memories were.
think it's just a blur of shock and emotional loss and chaos. I felt very lost. And I remember there was the days I was overworking and I was overwhelmed with work, and I didn't know where I was going. I mean, like career wise. And so I, when the war began, when I first heard the explosions, the first thought that came to me was, am I having a day off today? It's crazy. I texted, I asked my, like, a team lead at school if we're having a day off, and she said, like, of course, come on, go back to a safe place, come to a safe place, like whatever. And but it was just, I was just lost, and I was just like sleeping, walking, sleeping. I don't know. Yeah, I spent the first days trying to find any way to help, looking for ammunition for friends who joined the army, connecting people, like finding someone in Paris, calling them. I never knew those people in Paris, like really French people. It was so strange, donating, collecting something. And it was so random. Everything was just very messy, like just, grabbing onto something, anything. And I don't even think it was helpful, but I needed to be doing something.
Yeah.
I needed to be involved in something, because I couldn't just sit still and what, stand by, watch what. Yeah. Um, that was pretty much the first couple of
Did
weeks. Yeah, but
you leave Odessa at any
yeah,
point, or have you stayed in?
yeah. My boyfriend is from Vinnytsia region, and we went to his parents' place, and we stayed there for a couple of weeks. Yeah.
And then you decided to go back to Odessa
Yeah. Yeah.
because
I wanted to be. I wanted to be with Odessa. I wanted to be with my city. I wanted to be with my people. And I remember Odessa just in April 2022, March. The streets were completely empty.
yeah,
Like, city center, and people, the only people that were there, they were volunteers, and they were like constantly doing something. They were busy doing something, and it was just in the air. And it was so awe-inspiring. Like, literally, people, you're gonna die, but you keep doing something, you keep helping, you keep donating. And I think that was something that, again, kept me sane, maybe. I don't know.
there's a guy I listen to sometimes. I don't know if you know him. He's like a kind of Ukrainian philosopher called Volodymyr Yermolenko,
Hmm.
and he has a podcast that he does in English. And I was listening to one this morning in the gym, and he was talking about how there's no point thinking if you're not also able to act, and just the importance of acting. He was saying that this is something that's kind of become very apparent in Ukraine over the last 3 years. Is, you can sit and contemplate all you want, but without action, it's pointless because the
Yeah.
situation requires action. And he was talking about what you've just said, really, which was the way in which acting and making yourself feel useful is a way of kind of preserving your sanity, and it's also a way of I guess, protecting and preserving society
Yeah.
and protecting and preserving civil society. And, you know, Ukrainian civil society has obviously been really important over the last 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah, because acting is contagious, and that's what's beautiful about it. Because when you see people act, you join
Yeah.
them. Like you can't help but do it. This is how it works. Yeah, and in terms of civil society and just all these things, I've read this book on tyranny, and I
Yeah.
think I honestly think everyone in the world has to read it. It's just a tiny book, but it's just a base. And there was a chapter that is just particularly struck with me. It's contribute to a good cause. This is the way to support civil society. And the moment I read the chapter, there's 2 pages, tiny. I immediately opened all kinds of non-governmental organizations I know, and I set an autopay. So in order to support them, because well they don't get the grant from the states anymore,
Yeah.
so they're left on their own, and they have to pay salaries, they have to promote themselves, they have to do this important work, because when there's still some part of like non-governmental organization in the country, it means that there is some part of democracy still alive. And I think this is our responsibility as just people,
So
civil
asking
society.
for the book again. So there you go.
Okay.
Matching copies. On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder. I'll put it in the link later. In a story. Yeah, it's a great book. It's
Yeah.
funny because one of the things my kids have got very used to me doing is me stopping and scratching stickers and things off lampposts. And there's a little bit in the Timothy Snyder thing about don't allow your physical environment don't allow like oppressive symbols or language or whatever to become normalized in your physical environment. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's like every time I see a kind of communist party thing or a far right party thing or just, you know, like anti-trans stickers or whatever stuck on lampposts, I'm like, just get rid of this shit.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna have this stuff kind of in the visual space of my environment, because I think it's once you start to accept that, it's part of a slippery slope, you know. And if you accept
Becoming
stickers like that,
complicit.
yeah, you
Yeah.
become complicit, and then it just becomes normal. And then somebody sprays a swastika on the wall, and then you get used to seeing swastikas on the wall. And as soon as you start seeing all that kind of stuff, you're on a slope towards all of those things becoming normalized and accepted. And so, I mean, for me, that was a really useful book, because it was like, okay, this is why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
You know, I'm scratching this stuff off because I don't want this stuff to become normalized in my visual environment. Okay, thank you. You know, it
Yeah.
helps you to understand your own impulses in that way.
Yeah, and same goes to again the language that people say and all those jokes. And I don't know if you know, but well, this the Soviet, it's a very Soviet thing. My dad used to tell those jokes, and it was something normal. It was just basically racist
Yeah,
slurs.
yeah,
It was about people from Moldova, that they are all thumbs, that whatever they do make with their hands is just dodgy, it's just no low quality. And what seemed like an innocent joke is actually this way of thinking about other people, someone other.
yeah,
And that was just, it got me thinking, why are we doing this? Why are we telling those jokes? And we find them funny and we find them normal. And I caught myself like thinking that way. Like once I did something and I was just, oh, Moldova people. And I was just, what did you just say? What was that? It was just, and it was very deeply integrated in the culture, in the Soviet
yeah.
culture.
I mean,
And
I remember hearing Russians tell me Ukrainian jokes. Um, you know, and looking back on it now, you kind of same feeling. I kind of think, well, that's part of the normalization of othering people, because it then makes them easier to kill at a future
yeah,
point in
that's
time.
the point.
Basically, you know, that's where that goes in the end.
Yeah,
It goes in one direction. It's
yeah,
not just entertainment. It's kind of about seeing people as different and lower human beings than you know.
yeah. And jokes about Jews,
Yeah,
terrible. I
yeah,
mean, how did they even come up? Like,
Yeah. I mean, in England, when I was a kid, it always used to be there's an Englishman, a Scotsman, and an Irishman. And my dad's generation would tell those kind of jokes, and the jokes were always, ha ha, the Irish are stupid. And then you kind of get older and you realize about our own colonial history. And it's like, so wait a minute. We occupied Ireland for 500 years. We starved them. Millions of Irish people died because of English government policies. And now we're laughing at them. Well, what the
Yeah.
fuck? It's like,
It's
that,
funny.
you know,
Yeah.
how is this okay?
I know a guy. He's my speaking buddy from Canada, and he is originally from London, and he moved to Canada when he was like 5 years old with his parents. And his uncle, he is Irish, and he had to take accent reduction classes in order to get a good career, in order to fit in. So people won't. So his accent won't give him away that he is Irish. He could get an education, but the career was something he couldn't achieve with his Irish accent, which is like really,
Crazy.
yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, hey, Tanya, by the way, hello. I see Tanya just saying hello there. So hello. Hope you're okay. Just wanted to ask you how all of this has. I realise it's a big question, so answer it however you want. How has all of this affected your teaching, Karyna?
I wanted this question. I was waiting for you to finally ask it. That's why I'm here. It's just I just got back from like having a coffee with one of my students who is from Kherson region. Her parents are, and they were living in occupation for half of the
Yeah,
year. And her dad, when their village got liberated, I mean, by Ukrainians, um, he just changed beyond all recognition. He was different, and he was so hard to talk to and to deal with. And the day they just went to Ukrainian territories, he joined the army. So eventually he went missing, and that was the lesson when I found it out that was what happened. And there was just a class, I'm just asking my students like, how are you? How's your day? How's your weekend? Are you all right? And the student coming to class, joining like completely normal face, and I asked you, how are you? She said, I'm not good. I think my dad got killed in the army. And there was A2 class, so she couldn't say like in a proper way. And I was just I couldn't say anything. I was speechless, and she was crying, I was crying, and she says that he's gone missing. He's gone missing, and I don't know what to do. I don't know why I came to the class. I just wanted to get distracted because it's crazy. I'm going mad in my room. I don't know what to do, where I can get information, any kind of information about him. So it was supposed to be a class about traveling experience. So I ended up teaching on deaths, hostages, the war, people going missing, the way to talk about it, and the thing is that other students joined, like they were involved in it too.
yeah,
But when I closed my laptop, I just cried for an hour straight. I couldn't understand, how is it real? Like, this is what I'm teaching, really, about people being killed in the war. And yeah, so there are lots of stories like that. Another one is not that like bad, but my student, it is a B2 class or something. She told me that there'd been a terrorist attack right outside her window. Someone's car exploded, like by Russians, of course. There was someone's like soldier's car, and people got injured. So my student like immediately wanted to step in and help because she had a tourniquet and she knew how to give first aid. She was trained. Yeah, but her boyfriend stopped her because, when there is one attack,
the
it can be followed by another one.
strikes, yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's
Can I
dangerous.
just say,
And so
For people watching outside of Ukraine who don't know about this, it's a very common Russian tactic called double tap strikes, where they'll target an area and then they wait for the first responders to come, so that first aid people and doctors come, and then they hit the area again so that they take out the first responders. It's a kind of repeated tactic they've often used during the last 3 years. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Yeah, so she didn't go there to help, but and she was saying this, and she said, "I'm sure I'm so sorry I didn't do that. I think I should have stepped in and helped." And but the moment that we all in the class um, agreed on that we like it's about tourniquet. It's tourniquet, yeah, in
Uh,
English,
tour-
tourniquet,
Tourniquet, I believe, but I may be
tourniquet.
wrong because it's
Yeah,
not a word I've often used. Tourniquet, I think.
whatever. Yeah.
I
Okay,
understand
but
what you
you
mean.
got it.
I'll check it
Yeah,
afterwards to probably correct myself, but
yeah. Okay, I'm gonna Google that too. So, and I carry it whenever I go. Like it's just in my bag, and just the fact that I casually grab it as I'm
yeah.
leaving, my house, is just is crazy.
Have you
It's
had training
surreal.
how to use them, Karyna?
Hmm?
I mean, like, do you know what you're doing with them?
I know maybe just the basis, but I don't think I would be able to give first aid just alone. No, just myself. So I always rely and think that I hope someone's next to me will do this. Yeah,
I have to check the bloody pronunciation now.
I think it's both way. Tourniquet, tourniquet is the American one, and
Ah,
tourniquet,
we're both
tourniquet,
right. We're both right.
tourniquet.
That's always
Yeah,
good.
good, good. That's good news. Good news. Uh, Yeah, so it's about carrying a tourniquet just in case.
Yeah. And so I guess a lot of it's funny. I mean, I've mentioned it before, and I mentioned it at the talk I did at IATEFL this year. That if you work in publishing, there's this kind of fear of putting anything into classroom material that may be triggering for people who've experienced trauma. And my experience of working with people who've experienced trauma is pretty much anything can be triggering, because it's like a normal page of a course book is, how was your last holiday? Where do you live? What's your house like? Yeah, look, both.
Oh, both. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Someone else has done the hard work for us and checked.
Thank you.
know, talk about your family, or talk about so many things that are just neutral. I remember the days when I used to be able to do those kind of topics, and they were just topics in a course book, and people would have normal conversations about their families and their houses. And obviously working with lots of people who are experiencing the war, everything's triggering. It's almost like it doesn't matter. I mean, from your own experience of being in classes sometimes with me, it's like it doesn't matter what topic it is. It's kind of everything kind of comes back to, well, it's funny we should be talking about this because, and it all kind of comes back to the war, and the most unlikely things can spark very, very heavy personal experiences and revelations. And I don't think there are things which are trigger free or neutral for people. Although I do know, I mean, I don't know if you've had that experience of using classroom material which still mentions Russia. A lot of course books still have, and now we listen to Michael talking. It's not in the new edition.
It
It,
is.
it's not. Seriously?
It is a beginner. Yeah, how it comes
Beginner,
to
yes,
dinner.
because we haven't rewritten that one since the 40s.
Ah,
That's
okay. But yeah,
why.
but
Well, when we were writing, we had
yeah,
to go through and remove lots of things, and
yeah.
yeah, because of the kind of triggering element. I mean,
I'm fine with that, just removing it myself when I'm doing the presentation, when I'm making the presentation. I'm used to that. I've been doing it for years. Yeah, any mentions.
yeah, and
Yeah, this is what you're talking about is just this is what life is about now, and you can't ignore it. You can't avoid like those topics because they just come up naturally. And this is what I do as well. Like, I think with the war, with all the, I've became more empathetic. I listen more, and like. I genuinely care about them. And because especially now we're all in the same boat, you know, we all come to the class after a sleepless night,
Yeah.
sleep deprived, depressed, you know, it's all doom and gloom. And it's something we all share, the context. And I never force any kind of topics like, let's talk about politics today, let's talk about the Donetsk region today. It just comes up. And we sometimes just spend a lesson debunking lies we were just growing up with. And yeah, this is just what people need now. And I think we have to like respond to this need.
I'm interested how you balance, because I think one of the things I found difficult working with either closed groups of Ukrainian students or groups of students which also include Ukrainians is the degree to which you try to create classrooms as a space away from everything that's happening and an opportunity to kind of think and talk about other things and you know a kind of, I don't know, a space of escape and happiness amidst the madness, and the degree to which the real world kind of impinges on that, and how you balance that. And I just wondered, how do you manage it yourself? Like, how do you see it? Do you kind of plan classes that are about things away from everything that's happening, and try to create that as a kind of separate space where people can just go and think and talk about other things? Or do all the classes become filtered through the reality of the war? How's it work for you?
I think we always seem to take this bloody turning every bloody time.
No
This
matter
is
what you're trying
whatever
to
we are
talk.
talking about. I don't plan that. It can be just, you know, food. We are supposed to be talking about menu, like, you know, it's this outcome intermediate, like Peruvian cuisine.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
here we are talking about borscht and Russia, like taking it over and claiming this is theirs dish, and Russia taking credit for us for our things. Yeah, you just never know. It can be anything, like traveling and the way we are kind of limited in our traveling now, and like everything. Yeah.
I'm just thinking of that role play in Outcomes where you have to talk a foreign visitor through a menu from your country, and the way in which that might now work, where it's like, you
Yeah.
know, what's this? Oh, that's borscht. Yeah. And then you have the 5 minute conversation about the Russians
Yes.
taking it and how it's now got UNESCO protected status and all of that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I
so
just
I
gave
guess
my students the homework assignment after the class. He mentioned this page on outcomes. They have to watch someone's video, like a blogger, completely random, but visiting this restaurant in New York on Ukrainian cuisine that's been around for ages. And we are going to be talking about this specific restaurant and what they're doing, how they're promoting Ukrainian culture by food, through food, basically,
I know
and
this.
how they're,
Yeah,
yeah,
I know about this place. Yeah. This is the one that became a real kind of center of like
oh,
fundraising
yeah,
after the
yeah,
course
yeah, yeah.
of invasion. Yeah, yeah, I saw a video about this as well. I'll see if I can find all this and share it in the stories later. So I guess the last thing I wanted to ask really, Karyna, was how are you feeling now about the kind of weeks and months to come? Because we've had this kind of ridiculous circus over the last few weeks of you know, Trump's attempts to create a peace deal, and you know, appeasement of Russia, and the kind of circus of the peace talks that weren't peace talks, and all of that. Veselka, yeah, that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how are you? How are you feeling? Like how are people in your circle feeling? What's the mood? What's the?
I try not to think far ahead, and just live my life. You know, just do my best. But it just, yeah, a year ago, I had this epiphany in a shower. I was just completely alone, you know. And when you're in the shower, you're vulnerable, yeah. And this terrifying thought came to me: what if a Russian soldier just walked in and just shot me in the head? just like that, you know. This is not something new. It's been happening. And I realized that I wasn't okay with just dying like that, unarmed, helpless. And I promised myself, if it ever comes to that, if it's going to be too bad, if this was going to be in my, just no, not in my city, but if things are going to be too bad, I just won't go quietly. I'll fight. I go there. And I am just a coward myself. I'm not a brave person at all. But just the idea, you dying unarmed, I just want to be, I just want to have a choice, and I want to preserve my dignity. And this is all about dignity. Just, you know, you see people saying, uh, they are just not cut out for war. I just can't do that. This is not who I am. I can't. But the truth is, nobody's actually cut out, like born, meant for war. But the thing is, like, if you have your life, you have to be ready to fight for that. I like this Timothy Snyder quote. He's saying, if you're not ready to die for freedom, be ready to die in tyranny.
Yeah.
So I think that's all what it is about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
So
being.
this is how I'm.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go on.
No, this is how I'm feeling. I mean, I feel angry. I feel awake in a way, and but I know that I know what I stand for, and I know that I'm gonna fight for that, no matter what.
I remember an old Ukrainian person I was talking to once on a train in Ukraine telling me that there was an expression from her generation that was the people who didn't want to fight during the 1920s ended up having to eat their children in the 1930s, and that there's a deep cultural memory of that, and that kind of, if you don't fight now, it gets worse further down the line. And you know, it's exactly what you said about, if you don't want to die for freedom, get ready to die in tyranny. I was thinking, I saw this sticker yesterday that I posted as a little story, which just said, "Take no shit, do no harm." And I think it's a very good way of thinking about life. Is just, you, at some point you have to take a stand for things, and you have to stand for what you believe in. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's a really kind of powerful and painful thing to think about.
Thank
But I think
you.
so. It's also really important that people understand that a lot of Ukrainians feel like this, and that as Russia tries to, you know, tell its lies about Ukraine and Ukrainians really being Russians and all of that kind of stuff, that this is a very strong, dominant spirit within the country. And I mean, I know people myself who were originally teachers who are now serving, and I guess for me, one of the reasons that I don't feel I'm able to kind of, you know, stay far from politics and be neutral as an outsider is just because people I know are fighting. And like, I imagine if I was in this situation, and you know, if I had to think about my own children maybe fighting, or if I had to think about protecting my city, and you know, I guess for me it's a no-brainer that of course I would, you know, you'd stay and fight. I mean, I can't imagine the idea of, when you were talking about your feeling about Odessa, it's very much my own feelings about London. It's like, it's, you know, it's our city, it's my city. It's not something I can imagine walking away from and being able to sacrifice to someone who tried to tell me it's something that I know it isn't. So yeah, thank you for
I just wanted to add, if you don't mind,
that.
there's something that helps me to move on, to live, is the idea that every country at some point has to go through something like that, to go through wars, to gain independence, sovereignty. And I think this is just, it's inevitable. And we all have to be prepared. And another idea that democracy isn't self-sustaining.
Yeah,
Uh, It
yeah,
just doesn't work like
yeah,
that. Like, you can't just hand it over to someone in the government, someone who seems like a good leader, and just trust him wholeheartedly. You have to be awake. You have to be prepared and
yeah,
be ready to join and fight. Because if you, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No, I mean, I know that was from when I used to go to Russia. That was a very common kind of feeling, that feeling of, you know, we don't do politics, we're far from politics, we don't think about it, let them deal with that. I'm not a politician. Politics is a specialized subject. And for me, it was always like, everything's politics. It's like your whole life is politics. It's like the way you treat people is politics. The laws that you're subjected to are politics, and the idea that you'd leave it to other people is just insane for me. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, as you see with America now, people kind of think that America is this great democracy, and at the moment, the Trump regime is busy dismantling that democracy as we speak. And you know, I really, really hope that there's some strong enough undercurrents there to be able to sustain itself through this period of attack. But they're moving very quickly and ruthlessly to dismantle it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of Americans just kind of imagined that we're the center of democracy, the home of democracy. It can never happen here. You know, we've had this society for 300 years and it'll always be like this. And I think, as you said, it's countries don't work like that. You have to do the work to sustain the democracies. Yeah. Karyna, thank you so much for your time. It's actually my son's birthday, and I should 13 today, and I should go to
Great.
birthday dinner and stuff. But thank
Yeah.
you so much for your time,
Thank
and
you for your
I
time.
hope you have a better night's sleep
Yeah.
and
Thank you.
see you in class soon. And Slava Ukraini.
Heroям слава. Have a good party tonight.
Thank you. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Yeah.
Take care.